Live. Alright guys, so welcome to the first episode of Protoss Power Hour, where we talk about Protoss strategy and all that jazz. I'm a Zerg player, so I'm not really sure why I'm here. But it's probably because I'm dapper as fuck. So this show is the brainchild of XT Bright, so if Bright, you want to take it away, talk about what we're going to do.
Yeah, so the goal of this show is basically to talk specifically about Protoss strategy and to talk like what the pros are doing, recent events where Protoss players have played. Like today's focus is obviously going to be WCS Season 2 Finals. And then after we talk about what's happened in the scene lately with Protosses, we'll be talking about what we're doing ourselves on ladder and in tournaments and stuff, what's working for us, what's working against us. So if you're a Terran or a Zerg player, I mean, you can still find useful information on builds if you're struggling versus Protoss. We'll talk about it, and we just kind of want to avoid the whole balance whining stuff, so we didn't want to get people of other races in here to argue with us. We just want to talk strictly strategy and stuff like that.
Alright, so with us we have some very talented Protoss players. Starting from the left, we have Cowman, XT Cowman, XT Starfire, and XT Primal Moon. So if you guys just want to tell a little bit about yourselves.
Sure, I'll go first. Cowman, I play for XT. Been following the StarCraft scene basically since StarCraft 2 beta came out. It's been a blast. Pretty good at it, not the best. Wish I was better. I'm like High Master-ish, low GM.
Alright, Starfire.
I'm Starfire, I play for XT. I don't play as much as I'd like to play. I watch a ton of StarCraft though, and I've always loved the pro scene and love what they do over in Korea. And yeah, as the foreigner scene has gotten a lot better over the last few years, that too. So I watch a lot of StarCraft and just love Protoss.
Alright, Primal Moon.
Awesome. I'm Primal Moon. I joined XT like a month and a half ago, and I've been playing StarCraft since the beta. And I am High Masters.
Okay. So our first topic that we had for the night was WCS. The WCS quarterfinals were this past weekend, and I have a breakdown of that. So, yeah. What do you guys want to talk about WCS-wise?
I think it'd be good to start with group stage probably. There wasn't too much going on aside from Naniwa beating out Innovation and Duck Duck. So I guess I'll give my thoughts kind of on that first. Duck Duck kind of had Naniwa's number going into it. He'd beat Naniwa in their first match, and then he'd beat him in WCS EU. And then he came back to beat Duck Duck in some impressive games. And I know beforehand Naniwa said that he figured out how Duck Duck played, and so he had his number now, and it turned out he actually did. He played really well against him. I mean, that series was just kind of textbook PvP, reading your opponent well and reacting properly. I don't know if anybody else wants to talk about that series specifically, but it's kind of what I got out of that.
Duck Duck was up 5-1 over Naniwa on map score going into the third set. After Naniwa had come off a really impressive victory over Innovation, he was then going up with this guy who like had beat him 5-1. He'd never actually taken a series against him before, and he crushed it 2-0. I was super impressed by Naniwa's being able to just hold that mental fortitude at the end. It's really good.
Anything about Innovation, Pat?
Oh, Innovation. I really feel like Innovation wasn't on form this weekend, not to take anything away from Naniwa. Naniwa played some fantastic StarCraft. But I felt like Innovation just did not have... He was not playing his best games this weekend.
And I know we want to try to avoid balance at all costs, but, I mean, I've heard people say, some very important, intelligent people, that the reason Innovation didn't do so well is because the Hellbat nerf. What do you guys think about that? Do you think that had anything to do with his playstyle?
No, I think whenever I was watching it, at least, it seemed like Innovation was just making wrong moves against Naniwa, at least. Some wrong moves. He was kind of like throwing some, kind of like through the first game, and second game though, Naniwa did play very well.
So you think it was just like really good Protoss play out of Naniwa?
Really I think so,
safe,
yeah.
Really safe play. Like the first game, Innovation was just way too aggressive. He lost like his first pressure did basically nothing. Then he tried dropping like mines and marines, and that did absolutely nothing. And he just kept trying to do drops and drops. And despite the fact Innovation was ahead like 30 supply or 35 supply at one point, he lost like 4 medevacs, a couple of which were full medevacs. And Naniwa was on like 2 bases with 7 gates. So I don't think that Innovation should have been trying to punish him in the first place. And so he just kind of capitalized that. And on game 2, like Kyle said, Naniwa just played a very solid game. Like, he delayed Storm to the point where he knew he could get it safely, and it was just textbook.
So is there any other memorable things from the group stages that you want to talk about? How about Alive's group stage?
Primal, you got anything you want to say on any of this stuff? You've been quiet.
Just
I don't know. I mean, with Naniwa, it really feels like there's 2 weak points in a Protoss's game, right? There's like that early game when a Terran that opens gas and they're trying to defend, you know, Widow Mines, Hellions, or anything else. And then there's when the Protoss wants to take a third, right? Innovation didn't do the first thing. He never did any early damage. And then he never was able to, you know, punish Naniwa taking early third because he never did, right? He just played really safe. And Innovation tried to punish anyway. And I think that's what gave Naniwa the win. He made a lot of bad calls.
Okay.
I
So,
agree.
the quarterfinals.
Well,
We all know-
What if we talk about the first Bomber and Bolt group
Okay.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
we can go into
before that? And also, I want to go over to the
and a
Jadon
fuck yeah to Scarlet.
MC group. But the Group B went really, really well. It was a really good kind of showing hierarchy because Polt had crushed PBT all the way through WCS America. He had he had every Protoss's number going through WCS America, and then he comes over and he plays first. And first absolutely dominated Polt. But then first went against Bomber, and Bomber Bomber tore everyone a new one this tournament, but he especially destroyed first that 2-0 victory in the
Definitely.
winner's match.
Well, I think, for Polt against First, Polt's style that's worked really well against Protoss players has always been that he's kind of aggressive and brings the game into his own hands. And First style is actually taking away from that completely because Polt's used to putting people on the back foot, and they have to react to him. They have to deal with what he's putting you through. But First, actually, he's like, no, I'm going to be aggressive before you get a chance to do anything to me, and so I'm going to make you have to play reactionary early on. And the first game, or maybe it wasn't the first game, but one of the games, he sniped Polt's Reaper, which was his only scouting super early. So he's like, you know what? Third Nexus at 6 minutes. It was ridiculous. And then other games, Polt did a blink timing early on before Polt even had a chance to get aggressive. And so I just feel like Polt kind of lost because he got put out of his comfort zone.
Yeah, definitely. And First has been doing that, and sometimes it works out for him, and sometimes it doesn't. And we'll talk about that later in the quarterfinals. But he does bring some interesting thoughts to the matchup from the Protoss perspective.
So obviously Grubby went 0-2 in that group, but what would you guys have to say about his matches?
It's outclassed.
Yeah. Two really good Terran versus Protoss players. I mean, Bomber and Polt, I think you'd have to agree that Bomber specifically are the best Terran versus Protoss players in the world. Even if First did beat Polt, I think it was more so just the styles didn't match up at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
unfortunately,
go ahead.
Unfortunately, I mean, Grubby's a great player, and he's actually come a long way this summer. Especially he showed that in Europe. But I think he's got a really hard group, and that was just that.
That sucks. I love
Did he
Grubby.
play
I want him
first?
to win everything. Just win everything.
Yeah. Did he play
Very
first?
likable guy.
I don't think he did.
He lost to Bomber than Polt.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But,
So Group A, you want to go over Group A at all?
Who's in that group again?
Group A is
Jaedong, Rain, MC, and Wellmu.
yeah.
Yeah.
or you can talk about how freaking J-Dog's PVZ, how good it is.
Obviously,
VVP.
it's good.
Yeah.
Made it out of a group with 3 Protoss players.
Yeah,
It's
he went from
dude.
terrible to really good in that matchup.
He went 10-2 over the weekend. He didn't lose a series to a Protoss player, and he went 10 maps to 2.
He like only played Protoss the whole tournament until the finals. Like,
Yeah, and then Bomber happened.
Actually, is that
Oh.
true? He
Yeah,
only
that
played
is true.
Protoss, that is true. Till the finals.
Yeah.
So I guess
That's why it was so easy for him.
yeah.
Talking about the other players, though, is that Wellmu took a map off both MC and Rain.
Yeah.
And he didn't look half bad. Like, I felt like some of those other games he could have taken, and the series might have gone a different way.
He has a very
Yeah.
interesting PvP style.
Yeah,
so he
Wilmu's
can take a game
PvP
off of anyone.
His
Yeah.
PvP is super good, and like honestly, in game 3 versus Rain, he had a contain on Rain at the bottom of the ramp, and he ended up like walking away early, despite the fact he could have just warped in more sentries. And he walked away because I think Rain had a pylon on the other side of the map and like started warping in Zealot, so he kind of got scared and went home. But he expanded, but then he got caught at the high ground of his own ramp, and he was doing like some Zergs do when they do like a mass Zergling thing. He was just like face smashing into the force fields over and over, trying to get down and save his Nexus. And he lost like 20 supply just getting cut in half on there. And I mean, if Wilmu would have kept his composure, I think he actually could have beat Rain in that series. But that's, I mean, otherwise the best two players in the group came out though. I mean, that's
Yeah.
kind of a given.
Okay.
Almost one of those Protosses. I really like his style. Like I could never do it, but I really like watching it.
All right, you guys want to move on to the quarterfinals then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sounds
sure.
good.
Okay.
3 Protoss in the quarterfinals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
bad.
the quarterfinals were really evenly
It was
distributed,
looking
though.
good.
I mean,
Yeah,
if you
that-
look, there's
Yeah.
3
Balance-wise.
Protoss, 3
Three,
Zerg,
two.
2 Terran. Or I'm sorry, 3 Terran, 2 Zerg.
For
Yep.
Yeah.
Um,
So start at the top, Alive versus First.
yeah.
It's definitely like the most awesome one for Protoss, I think.
Yeah, this was
Yeah.
probably the
Yeah.
best
Most
series
awesome
for all
play.
of us the entire tournament.
Uh-huh.
I love the way First played this. 2 games he won, he shouldn't have won.
Yeah.
Like, he really shouldn't have won them.
Basically.
So
And he
what in
just
particular?
plays so good. Well, you have game 2, right? Game 2 is the one with he goes proxy robo, which I mean I think is bad. But he goes proxy robo. It gets scouted. He makes an immortal. The immortal dies for free. He loses 3 stalkers, 2 sentries to Marines, and he loses nothing. And he loses the mothership core. So he's like, fucked. It's over. But his reaction to being behind is he's not going Colossus, he's going Templar. He's going to get Storm as fast as possible, and he's going to get a Warp Prism. And that's what he did. And I don't know, does anyone want to say anything about how he plays?
I mean, he definitely
After that.
utilized the Warp Prism that entire series, and I
Yep.
mean, it's just, to me, not playing Protoss, it seems like that's such a crucial part in PvT, using that Warp Prism harass. How do you
Well,
guys
when you
feel
have
about it?
Storm, you have so many more varieties of things you can do as a Protoss player. You can be very aggressive. It's not like Colossus, where if you move out, Vikings are just going to start sniping you and you can't run away. You have Storm, so you can hold them back and retreat. So as soon as you get Storm, he moves out, even though his army's small. He forces Alive to make, to kind of counter his army, and he has a Warp Prism here, he has a pylon over here, he's constantly sending Zealots in. And he waits until he can take a good engagement, or at least, get small advantages here and there. He'll never commit to a fight.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll just slowly whittle his way back into the game, and it really is a great way to play.
Yeah,
I agree with
I'll
that.
kind of comment on that part of his play a little bit more. Like, Rain, the one thing you can count on, like, he's not a predictable Protoss, or First isn't a predictable Protoss, kind of like Rain or even like Parting in the PvT matchup. But one thing you can always count on is that he's going to have a Warp Prism, and he's going to use it. But he always waits to send it in. Like, sometimes he'll build it really early, and he'll just fill it with 4 Zealots, but he'll camp it on the side of the main until he sees you move out. And that's one thing with First, is he has some of the best map control, like the map presence of any player. His army's always being mobile. He's got the watchtowers. He's got a couple observers that are always across the map, not necessarily looking for drops coming toward his base. And he's got always usually pylons ready to start doing run-bys too. So he knows when to send in the Warp Prism that can buy himself time to finish that +2 upgrade or to finish that Storm research. And he just spreads his Templar in a position where he can always guarantee himself to get off some Storms. In general, that is. I mean, we can go more in depth into some of the games. Like, I know we've got a link for